Today we're going to be doing the UFC Mexico full card predictions and breakdown. It's headlined by Brandon Moreno and Lona Kavanagh. I will say it's a very weak card, especially for the start of the Paramount era, with not many big names, but I'm going to be breaking down every fight on the card. Starting off with Damian Pinas versus Wes Schultz. Wes, sorry mate, you're getting slimed out. Pinas is my new favourite fighter. He got a really good win over Vitor Costa quite recently. It was on the last season of Dana White's Contender Series. And Wes Schultz, he's one of those guys who's been on Contender a couple of times. He lost to Mansour Abdul Malik the first time in like a pretty scrappy fight. He is very scrappy on the feet. He's not very clean. But Pinas is just a much more composed, he's a much more slick fighter. And there's a reason that he's coming in as a favourite over Wes Schultz. Just because Wes Schultz, he's an alright guy and he's a decent fighter, but like, he's not the same level of Damian Pinas, the big Pinas. He is the much better fighter out of the two, and he's going to be able to get it done by first round KO. Maybe second round. Wes Schultz may be able to make it a bit difficult for Pinas. Now, we'll move on to the next one. It's Eric Silva versus Francis Marshall. I'm going to have to go with Francis Marshall. He should easily get this one done. He's a pretty heavy favourite. Yeah, minus 530 favourite. He should get it done over Eric Silva. Look, Eric Silva, he's a decent fighter, but it looks like he just comes in for a check every now and then. His last fight was against Muhammad Naimov, and it looked like he was knew he was injured before the fight and really didn't really try in the fight. And then since then, he hasn't been in the octagon, so I've only really got that Naimov fight to go off. He's not got too many fights in the UFC as a whole. You can see only 6% of people are picking him. But he's a decent fighter, but he's just not the level of guy that I would think would beat Francis Marshall. If you look at his fights, he's had a fight against TJ Brown, getting arm triangled in the third round. And then on the Contender Series, he got a round 1 ground and pound TKO against an opponent who hasn't shown back up on the Contender, with a pretty awful Contender record with 16-9, 16-10 after that fight. So I just don't think that Eric Silva's UFC level, and Francis Marshall, although he's had some close fights and he's had some pretty rough losses, the only legit one I could look at is the Isaac Dulgarian one. And then the William Gomez and Mayron Santos fights were very, very close fights. I think he won the Mayron Santos one in my opinion. So Francis Marshall, he should be able to get this one done over Eric Silva. He just seems to take his career a lot more seriously. I could see a submission maybe in the second or third round, or a TKO due to ground and pound. Moving on, we've got Regina Tarin versus Onesta Karaskate. I'm going to go with Regina Tarin. I know she's taking it on short notice and she's very young at only 21 years old. But Onesta is an alright fighter. She just seems to be in a decision every single one of her fights. She's always going to close split decisions. And I think that Regina Tarin in women's MMA, a lot of control time means a lot more because there's a lot more damage just in general. And I think that Regina Tarin is just going to be able to hold down Karaskate at moments and just win by a smudge 29-28 decision win. Moving on, we've got Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Javier Reyes. My mouse is not working right now. This is going to be a decent fight. I quite like Douglas Silva de Andrade, but it's actually a tough one to predict. A lot of people go with Douglas in this sort of spot because he's a lot more experienced than Javier Reyes. But recently, Douglas Silva de Andrade has been losing to some pretty unimpressive guys like Miles Johns. He lost a decision. Saeed Nurmagomedov, he also lost as well. And those two, they're not terrible, especially Saeed. He's a decent fighter. But Miles Johns is a bad look. I don't really like anyone losing to Miles Johns. Maybe make it close, but don't lose to Miles Johns. He's literally just got to know. He's a Josh Emmett with no power. So I don't love that performance for Douglas Silva de Andrade, and he's 71 years old, and he's much less explosive and athletic, and he's coming up a weight class nowadays. Used to be a 135, and now he's at 145. And to be honest, one thing that Douglas Silva de Andrade has always struggled with is that he's constantly been super inactive since the beginning of his career in the UFC. He would go about once a year, he'll fight. He'll put on a decent performance every time, but then he just won't show up back to work for another year, and he can never really get momentum because of that. And I think getting up there in age, I think having closer fights with guys he should beat. It's leaning towards Douglas Silva de Andrade having a moment where he's just not going to have a great fight. And I think that Javier Reyes, although he got slimed out in 2023, and he's just looked dangerous the last couple of fights he's had. And I think he's going to be able to outdo Douglas Silva de Andrade to a decision as well. Moving on, we've got Christian Quinones versus Chris Matinho. Honestly, how is this even a UFC fight? Like, Christian Quinones is alright. Chris Matinho is terrible. And Quinones is just better than Matinho. He is much better. He's actually beaten a decent opponent in Long Zhao, who's fighting Cody Garbrandt at UFC 326 next week. And his only losses in the UFC are to Barcelos and Ho Kang by rear naked choke. And look, the Barcelos loss isn't too bad. The Ho Kang loss isn't great. But Quinones is an alright fighter. His grappling isn't amazing. I could see Chris Matinho pulling off an upset with the grappling, but he doesn't really. Chris Matinho has nothing on the feet to really set that up, and I think Christian Quinones is going to be able to get a TKO finish over Chris Matinho. Matinho uses his chin as defense, so you just can't trust that coming into any sort of fight in the UFC. He's not UFC level. Moving on, though, we've got Aylin Perez versus Macy Chasson. Perez is going to win this one. I'm not trusting Macy Chasson. She's going to show up at literally like 7 pounds overweight, and then she's going to make every bad decision in the fight. Watching the Yana Santos fight versus Macy Chasson really opened my eyes to see Chasson is not all that. She's very bad. Like, she should be in women's featherweight if that was a division. She constantly misses weight, and I just think that she's not like the level that you'd have to beat like some of these top contenders. I know that Aylin Perez isn't that highly ranked in the division, but Macy Chasson, she's showing recently that she's a bit frail, and she doesn't really have a great game. She goes into her weaknesses and plays that the entire fight. Like, if you remember the Yana Santos fight, Yana Santos was only having success in the clinch, and what does Chasson decide to do? Clinch fest when she's getting out clinched the entire fight and then thinks that she won the fight. Like, she's a very frustrating fighter to watch because she's got good skills. Like, it's just her fight IQ every single time will let her down. And Aylin Perez, she's clean, she's got decent grappling, decent striking, good decision making, and against Chasson's only good against someone with like a glaring weakness, and I think that Aylin Perez doesn't have that, and she's going to win a 30-27 decision here. Moving on, though, we've got Ryan Gandra versus Jose Medina. God, UFC Mexico pulling out all stops. We've got some of the worst fighters in the UFC. Jose Medina, how are you still here? You see here, you can see all the big, fat red L's under Jose Medina's name there. 4 in a row losses. And to be honest, I genuinely think he could pull this one off. But I'm going to have to go with Ryan Gandra just from, like, you just can't be the guy picking Jose Medina. I refuse to be that guy. But Ryan Gandra looked great in the Dana White's Contender Series, but he faced a guy called Trent Miller, who genuinely made Jose Medina look like John Jones. He looked like he was just coming out there, showing up for a paycheck. Looked like he'd never fought in his life, and he just got pinged around the octagon by Ryan Gandra. So you can't really gauge how good he is, but Medina's barely a UFC fighter. I could go as far as saying he's not even a UFC fighter. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. He lost his fight coming into the Dana White's Contender Series, then gets absolutely dominated by Zachary Reese, KO'd by Ateba Gautier, and then rear naked choked by Dusko Todorovic in the battle of the worst. Dusko and Jose Medina are clearly the 2 worst middleweights, and he still lost by a first round rear naked choke. And that should have been enough to cut him. He shouldn't have even got signed. He didn't even win his Dana White's Contender Series fight. And somehow, Medina is just showing up and blobbing his way to another loss. Like, Ryan Gandra is going to get it done. I know Medina can't win this one. Medina had 4 losses in a row, and then he had 2 losses prior to coming into the UFC. And he barely beat an opponent with a positive record. I'm pretty sure he only won 2. He's only got 2 wins against people with positive records. That's terrible. He should not be in the UFC, and he's going to get cut after this fight. Moving on, we've got Santiago Luna versus Angel Pacheco. Luna should be able to get the win here. I am a little bit nervous, though, for Angel Pacheco. Angel should not be in the UFC. he's one of those guys similar to Jose Medina who showed toughness on the Dana White's Contender Series. He showed like a good chin, and then they signed him because he got beaten up. Like, he's a Jose Medina, but just not in the same weight class. So, sorry, I'm still recovering from my illness. But, Angel Pacheco is just not UFC level. Losing on Dana White's Contender Series is the worst base for MMA. And then he lost to Cowlin Loughran in 2024 and then proceeded not to fight for the last 2 years. Don't get me wrong, Angel Pacheco, if you've watched his fights, he is dog tough. There's no quit in him, but he also just doesn't have the explosivity, he doesn't have the skill to be able to get it done over a guy who's got lots of natural talent like Santiago Luna. He may be able to beat Luna just because Luna's 21 years old, he's the younger guy, he's a lot less experienced. And Angel Pacheco's never been finished, so it's going to be tough for Santiago Luna to be the first one to do so. Luna's very good, but he did almost get slimed out by Kwang Lee before coming back and getting the first round TKO stoppage. I think, might have been a club and sub, but I'm pretty sure, no, it was a TKO. He's super inexperienced, though, at 21 years old, but he's still clean and dangerous on the feet. He's got good submissions, and he's going to be a lot faster than Pacheco, and I think he's going to be able to get the win by like a club and sub in the second or third round. Moving on, though, we've got Imanol Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. This is a close fight. I hate picking Borjas fights, though. He'll go to war with Joshua Van and make it super close, but then he'll lose to Sumit Werji doing literally nothing, feinting at range, trying to look menacing, and then throw his hands up like he should have won a decision. This will be a scrap between Borjas, though, and Imanol Rodriguez. And Borjas does... I've seen a thing in Borjas' career where he does really badly against movers, but Imanol is going to stand right in front of him and he's going to throw down the entire time. I even thought he could have beaten Joseph Morales on The Ultimate Fighter, who is ranked right now. And Joseph Morales is a very, very good fighter, with his only loss in the UFC being Davison Figueiredo. He is very good, Joseph Morales, and I thought Imanol Rodriguez could have won that fight on the Ultimate Fighter. And if you're making it that close with Joseph Morales, that means you're a decent prospect yourself. And like Borjas, I just don't think he can win this. Sorry, I'm moving my chair up. Oh, sorry, but I don't think Borjas can win this by decision. I think he has to get a finish, and I don't. A guy like Imanol Rodriguez, who's training with DC, he's probably got the wrestling in the back pocket. He's probably going to steamroll Borjas to a dominant decision. I don't think Borjas is going to be able to get the finish on him. Moving on, though, we've got Edgar Chairez versus Felipe Boons. This is a prelim type fight. I'm sorry. I know this is UFC Mexico and Chairez is Mexico's guy, but this should not be on the main card of any fight night ever. I get Chairez could be on a main card. I don't mind Chairez being on there, but never ever put Felipe Boons on there. Chairez fights are usually cinema though, so it should be pretty fun, and I'm gonna have to pick Chairez because Boons never really impresses me. He's got pillow hands, he's got bad takedown defense, and the only really upside to him is that he's somewhat crafty in grappling positions. He almost pulled off a buggy choke against Rafael Esteban last fight, but for him to beat Chairez, he's going to have to put a grappling clinic. And look, people have done that before. Taylor ran a grappling clinic on Edgar Chairez, but he couldn't even finish Chairez. And Chairez is actually a decently good grappler. I think both of his last wins were by submission, and then he lost to Joshua Van in between with a decision loss. I don't think he's ever been finished by TKO. So the only way that Felipe Boons is going to be able to get it done is by smudge decision, and he could be able to do it, but I don't think he's got the explosivity, I don't think he's got the takedown entries, and I think that Chairez is going to be a lot more clean, and he's either going to get the club and sub or he's just going to KO Boons, and I think it's going to be more so a round 3 TKO late for Edgar Chairez there. He's got good length, and his record doesn't show how good he is. He's something like 11-6 or 12-6. And he's a lot better than that record suggests. He's got some close fights. His only losses in the UFC to Taylor and Van, who are some of the best prospects. And he's a good prospect for the future in flyweight and a fun-ass fighter to watch. Moving on, though, we've got Daniel Zellhuber versus Bobby King Green. I'm so tempted to pick Bobby Green. I don't think you understand how much I want to pick him, just because Zellhuber has never impressed me in any of his fights. And getting speed mogged by Michael Johnson is a bad look, especially for Daniel Zellhuber, who's literally like 27 years old. But when I think back on it, like, Michael Johnson beats Bobby Green. Like, I'm comfortable with saying that. And Michael Johnson's a tricky fighter to fight. He's harder to hit than you think, and he's got these really fast hands, and he always throws clean shots. He's never really overthrowing at all, even when he's tired. And Michael Johnson's defense, although it's not like great at all, we've seen that with the amount of times he gets flatlined, but it's effective. He keeps his hands up, and Zellhuber, a guy who doesn't set up anything, he just throws naked kicks and flicks out a jab every now and then. It's not going to be, like, it's going to be tough for him to catch Michael Johnson with something he expects, whereas Bobby Green's defense is so hard to pull off without getting slept, and it's genuinely like it's like a freak of nature that he didn't get slapped every fight at the start of his career. And it's to the point where every exchange against Lance Gibson Jr., who's so bad, like, watching that fight, Lance Gibson Jr. is not even close to UFC level, but I was still scared that Bobby Green would get absolutely colded and just twitch on the canvas. So I just have to go with Zellhuber. I don't think Zellhuber needs to, like, put on a clinic to be able to beat Bobby Green. I just think he needs to throw a couple of kicks every now and then and not get chinned, and I think he's probably going to be able to win this. He's going to be able to land consistently on Bobby Green, and he's hopefully learned to use his long range to his advantage for once. I don't think he would have, though. But should be, I think. Not too confident on this one, though. I still think that Bobby Green's got a good chance, but I think that Zellhuber's going to get it done by a decision. I don't even think he's skilled enough to sleep him. Moving on, we've got Marlon Vera versus David Martinez. I hate Chito Vera. I hate him. Because every single time his fight pops up, it's the same thing. It's, oh, is he going to stand at range watching you beat him up for 3 rounds? Or will he stand at range watching you beating him up for 3 rounds before he just flatline KOs you with a head kick? And each time, the probability of that happening is just going down. And every time, though, the thing is that the probability goes down of that every time. But then you also look at the opponent and you think, I could see him getting slept out cold by a head kick after doing nothing for 3 rounds. Like, everyone looked at that Amin Zahabi fight. I picked Amin Zahabi just because I thought that this is Chito Vera's fight to lose. But everyone was picking Amin Zahabi. Picking Chito Vera. And they were saying, oh, but Chito Vera only loses to the best of the best. He's going to be able to beat... Amin Zahabi gets hurt in all his fights. He's going to be able to flatline KO him. And to be honest, like, it was the type of fight that he should have done that, and he still couldn't get it done. And I think the likelihood of him actually getting that flatline KO, or just like KO with a head kick, has been going down every fight since 2022. It's now 4 years later, and he still hasn't KO'd anyone since. And I know David Martinez is the guy that would lose by a head kick KO to Chito Vera. He's constantly circling around to your power side, running away from you at full speed, could definitely run into a head kick. But he's got great cardio, he seems super strong, and he's very active on the feet, and his footwork's actually pretty good. And with all the outside footwork, although it does scream him to walk into a shot, that just doesn't seem to happen anymore with Marlon Vera fights. And Chito Vera, although he's got all the skills to be able to catch him there, it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. I think that Martinez is going to be able to school him to a decision. And I think it's going to be not easy. I think he's going to get maybe hurt in one moment. But I think apart from like a moment or two in the fight, I don't see Marlon Vera being able to pull out any stops. Maybe he could grapple with him. David Martinez was able to out-grapple Rob Font in moments and make Rob Font look really weak. But maybe that's just because Rob Font's grappling is just truly terrible and maybe Rob Font's truly weak. Marlon Vera may be able to do that, but I can also just see David Martinez doing the classic thing that every opponent does to Marlon Vera, which is the early takedown. Utilizing the free early takedown everyone gets on Marlon Vera, and he should utilize it. I think he's going to be able to win it and craft it up to a decision. Gosh. Moving on, though, to the main event. I have spoken about this fight at length in another video that I uploaded, I think, yesterday. But this is a decent matchup between these two. But I think Kavanagh, I did say it in the video, I think he's going to get choked out in round 3. If he didn't have the Charles Johnson fight where he gassed out in round 2 on a full training camp, I would think that the fight's maybe closer. I would actually consider picking him to just flatline KO Brandon Moreno just because he's coming back from a KO loss quite quick. And Lona Kavanagh is powerful. He's got a lot of he lands big shots. But the thing is with Lona Kavanagh is that he's just proven such a weakness in the cardio with 2 rounds, having only 2 rounds of cardio against Charles Johnson, that if you think he's going to be able to train in elevation on short notice and go 5 rounds, 2 extra rounds, 3 extra rounds, and he went with Charles Johnson, with a fighter who's gone 5 rounds more times than Charles Johnson, you're kidding yourself. Like, if you're picking Lona Kavanagh, you're saying, I think he's going to walk out there and I think he's going to pretend that he's just got 1 round to KO Brandon Moreno. It's him or me, and he's just going to try and finish him. If that's how you're picking, if you're picking Lona Kavanagh, that's how you got to pick him, because there's no other way he's going to win this one. I'm sorry, if you're a Lona Kavanagh fan like a lot of us are, he ain't getting this one done unless he's getting it done by like a flatline KO. There's no chance of him winning a decision. Because if it goes to round 4 and 5, he is getting TKO'd. Watching him puffing at the end of round 2 against Charles Johnson is proof of that. Absolutely. And I just think that, without getting like too deep into the stylistic matchup, it's just not the sort of fight that Brandon Moreno is just going to be like shown levels in the striking. Like, Lona Kavanagh's very good, but he reminds me a little bit of Rafael Fiziev, where everything looks like it has so much steam on it, but realistically he's actually just putting so much effort into every strike and it's loud. And then it gasses him out similarly to Rafael Fiziev, and then he'll have a bad second half of the second round and 3rd and 4th and 5th. And I think that that's not going to bode well for Lona Kavanagh in this fight. He didn't even have a warm-up fight to get back into rhythm, so he's going to be worried about getting flatline KO'd again. And he's still young. This is the sort of fight that just screws over your entire career. So for his sake, I hope he ends up getting guillotined as I predicted in round 3. I don't want to see him get flatline KO'd. I'd prefer to keep him as a prospect, but there's a good chance of it happening. I just think that if it comes to the point where he is gassing out, he's probably just going to start shooting takedowns and try not get TKO'd. So let me know who you think will win. Not the main event, the co-main event. I'm not massively interested in the main event. Who do you reckon will win out of Marlon Vera and David Martinez? And let me know what sort of videos you want to see coming up soon. I'll catch you next time. Peace.